Okay, guys, I'm going to teach you how to set up Git on your computer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the folder in C. We're going to go here to Windows Explorer. And we're going to open up the C drive. We're just going to create a folder, AgileX. Alright, now we have that folder. We're going to go to GitHub. We're going to sign in to GitHub. Enter your username and password. I have mine. I have the password in my copy paste thing. And then you won't see this, probably. So what you have to do, you have to come up here and go to C Portela,
Nice and easy. Slow.
Pinto. You know they can hear you saying that, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
But you're going too fast.
And then you go to C Portela, Pinto. Once the repository loads, you'll notice two things. One, down here, there's information about how to set things up. If you get lost, if you can't follow it, there's information here. This is the repository. Notice this is Carlos's repository because it says his username here and then the name of the repository. So we're going to come here to fork. We're going to click fork. And now it's going to be creating, this is what it does while it's making the repository. So now that it created this repository, which forked from, notice how it's linked back to Carlos's repository. This is my repository though. This is under my user and it's Pinto. It's the same name.
Your fork repository?
Right, that's what I said. And so notice it's the same exact instructions here. It basically copies the entire repository. So what you need to do now is you need to come search in Google Git desktop.
Git desktop. Allow time to move.
And then you come here to GitHub for Windows. This is what it looks like. You're going to download GitHub for Windows. It's a .NET program. It's going to run. It's going to want to do a click once installer. It'll take a moment to install. And so once this finishes installing, we're going to log in to the desktop application it loads up, the same we logged into GitHub. It's the same username and password. See GitHub, not the GitHub shell. There's another one here called GitHub shell, but not that. This one, GitHub, the blue one. You load here. It'll start up. It's going to take a little bit because it's installing things in the background. You'll notice very slightly there's a little bit of green. That's because it's setting up the installation. So we're going to say this.
Where's the little green?
It's down there. We'll log in. and it connects. Make sure to type your full name and your email. And it can't, just, you're okay with this, just hit skip. Now it's gonna finish extracting Git, that's setting up the whole, okay. So now that that's done, you can close this thing. You can close GitHub Desktop. Close this. And then you come back here. Now we're going to use GitHub Shell. It's going to bring up PowerShell. Okay. So now we're here. We're going to go to cd c agilex. And we're going to say the following. We're going to come back here to GitHub. We're going to go over here. We're going to say click on the SSH button, or link, sorry. You click on the SSH link. You'll click in here. You'll copy this right here, this URL. You'll come back to this PowerShell and you say the following: git space clone space, and then you paste that URL. Notice it says my name, my username, the repository name .git, and it also has this git@github.com. That means this is the right URL. If it says HTTP, that's not the correct one. Go back, click on SSH, and copy that URL. Now, you also need to make sure to type afterwards in the same capitalization fitmap.windows 8. Is that right? Yeah. Fitmap.windows 8. You hit enter, and it's going to start cloning.
Cloning. It's making a copy?
Basically makes a copy of the repository. It will tell you right here, this permanently added thing. That is not a problem. It tells you warning, but that's not a problem. This you should see this. It will take a little bit. The project is very big. So currently it's downloading all the files from GitHub. And it'll take a little bit for it to resolve. Okay. So now we go into the directory that we just created, and notice it shows this.
Master?
This is telling you what branch you're on. For now, that's not important, but that's an important thing to remember, that that's what this is. This means that you're inside the correct folder and that is the branch you are on.
Current master branch.
Right. The first thing you want to do is say git status. This is an important command. Notice it says master and it says on branch master. Also notice it says nothing to commit and working directory clean. That means nothing has changed and you don't have to save anything to Git or do anything as far as updating the server.
Can you do an ls to see what came down?
Notice everything that was here is now here, is in the folder that we created. Now, what we need to do is that we need to install another program now. We need to come back here. We need to install Git extensions. So come over here to downloads. You'll download this first one that says complete setup. You'll download it. In the meantime, also search for PuTTY. I think you have it installed. I don't have it installed on here, so I'm going to install PuTTY as well. I'm going to install the MSI. Okay. So since you probably have PuTTY installed on your computer already, I'm going to install that first, just so that I have it installed as well. Okay. Now PuTTY is installed just like you have it installed. I'm going to install Git extensions. Okay, so I'm going to go slow through this. Hit next. Install to all users of this machine. You check to install this and this. Make sure that both of these are checked. Hit next. Yeah, that's fine. You can hit next. Make sure that if you have Visual Studio installed, that it checks and says will be installed to hard drive. I don't have Visual Studio installed here, so it's not checking them, and I'm not going to check them. But for you, you're probably going to need 2012 and 2013 integration. Also make sure that everything else that is checked for me is also checked for you. So that means plugins is checked, custom merge script, spelling, translations, Windows Explorer, Git links, and Git Windows links. So we'll hit next. Also make sure that it's using PuTTY and not OpenSSH. And now we can install.
Remember, this is going to be a humongous file, even when we trim the blank.
Important to notice that it will start an installer in the background and that it won't continue until you say OK and continue it. You're going to want to install it with all these different things. Hit next, install for all users, install. You just basically click through it. Do not show the README finish. It's going to also start up the Git installer. Say next, you say next, next. Okay, here, make sure to disable the Windows Explorer integration and to leave it, to only touch that, only uncheck that part. Hit next. That's fine. Make sure you say run git and included Unix tools from the Windows command path. Leave it as Windows style in this one. Let it install. Okay, you don't want to release notes. So now it's finishing up. Okay. Now Git extensions is installed. Let's go to PuTTYgen. It's not PuTTY, it's PuTTYgen. Looks like this. You want to generate a key. Then wait while the key is being created. Okay. Give it a password. I'm going to make mine password. And then I'm going to save the private key. For now, I'm going to save it to the desktop just so that I have better access to it. I'll call this the swimming frog.ppk, save. Now I'm going to come up here, I'm going to select this, and select everything here. I'm going to copy it, copied it. Now I'm going to leave this open.
Then you're gonna save the public also?
I'm going to come here. It's this little icon right here. It says account settings. It's going to bring me to my profile settings. And when we come here, we're going to come down to SSH keys. And then notice that it already has an SSH key. The GitHub desktop application created one. You're going to add another one. Call this whatever you want. I'm going to call this SSH key 2. And then I'm going to paste the key. Oh. I'm going to paste the key. I'm going to add it. Now that key is authorized to use your account. So that means that we can now use Git extensions right here. It's going to ask us to set up. You're going to say Spanish. I'm going to say English. All this should be set up. You want to come to SSH and make sure that PuTTY is selected, not OpenSSH. Say OK. Okay. So now it should be coming up. There we go. So we're going to open a repository. We're going to browse. We're going to go to computer, C, Agilex, and then we're going to hit Fitmap Windows 8. If you notice, it's right underneath Agilex. We're going to hit this folder, not anything underneath, this one. We're going to say OK. We're going to open it. You're going to notice that there are a bunch of commits here, and this is the history of the Git repo, the log. So we're going to do a little test. We're going to come to Tools and PuTTY. We're going to start the authentication agent. Notice it just started right here. We're going to right-click on it, add a key. So we're going to come back to the key I made here. I called it Swimming Frog PPK. Notice the icon here is the same as the icon here. We're going to open it. I'm going to type in my password, which was password. You can verify that it worked because it'll be here in the keys that are loaded up. So now that you have loaded the key, you can open up the pull dialog, and you can click right through this. Usually these settings are good. You say pull. You say yes here, Y, and you exit. And then you're done. Now you're set up with both using the Git shell and Git extensions.